There's something that I want to cover with you with regards to the US Constitution and an article that was put out in the Washington Post some time ago. In fact, this was long before the US elections. This article is from September 24, 2020, this year, and the headline says that Trump could stay in power even if he doesn't win the election. The US Constitution allows it. Now, when you study the US Constitution, you will see that it's quite complicated, and what they call the founding fathers had many ideas and problems in mind, but obviously they can't see into the future. And it's ironic how what this article covers may be playing out right now in many ways and means. So the person that wrote this article, Farid Zakaria, he obviously had some insight into what might be happening in the future, and this is absolutely fascinating. And like I said, the script has been written and the play is unfolding, and Trump is but a mere part of that play. But if you look at the US Constitution, you might be able to see how many things might play out in future, and if they do, the play will still unfold. Unrest in the US, people fighting each other, civil war, and a completely divided nation. But let's continue with the article, and this might give you insight into a few things within the US Constitution you might not have understood before. By declining to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, President Trump has agitated many who fear he will refuse to leave office even if he loses the November election. Remember, this article was written way before the election itself, and may even resort to violence. The terrifying reality is that there are also several mechanisms that are legal and constitutional that could enable Trump to stay in office without actually winning the vote. In other words, everyone worrying that he is going to get some magical watermark, expose that in court, the watermarks that won't be on these fake ballots. This is all fake news being sent around, by the way, just so that you know. So he's not going to get those. Yes, there will be illegal ballots cast, and they might be able to find that, but it's not going to make sufficient of a difference. And the court cases certainly won't do him any justice. But what I can tell you is that what is described in this article can. And this is the only legal means and constitutional means by which Donald Trump can remain in office, even after losing the elections based on what the courts pronounce. So let's continue. The system of electing the president is complicated because it was not designed to be directly democratic. And this is the catch. You see, the people think that they're voting for the president, but it's not that straightforward. It's like in our country, you vote for a party, you don't vote for the president. The parliament elects the president. And they have something similar here if the president does not literally hand over power. The Constitution calls for states to choose the presidential electors, who in turn gather to vote for the president. Over time, states have passed laws that ensured their state's popular vote for the presidency would determine the electors, but those are laws, not a constitutional obligation. Now imagine the scenario during election week. Trump is leading in November 3rd, but the Democratic nominee Joe Biden gains ground in the days following. He is literally describing here what eventually took place. Now, I would say that he had some inside information of a plan which played out exactly as I said, as per the script. Republicans file objections to tens of thousands of mail-in ballots. Democrats file countersuits. Taking account of the confusion, legislatures decide to choose the electors themselves. This is where it gets interesting. Here's the worry. Of the 9 swing states, 8 have Republican legislatures. If one or more decide that balloting is chaotic and marred by irregularities, they could send what they regard as the legitimate slate of electors, which would be Republican. Democrats may object and file lawsuits. In some of those states, Democratic governors or secretaries of state could send their own slates of electors to Washington. That would add to the confusion, but that might well be part of the Republican plan, he says. Remember, this person writing this is obviously a Democrat. When Congress convenes on January 6th to tally the electors' votes, there would be challenges to the legitimacy of some electors. Congressional Republicans would agree that disputed states should not be counted. That would ensure that neither candidate would get to 270 electoral votes. And then the Constitution comes into play. At that point, the Constitution directs that the House of Representatives vote to determine the presidential election, not the people. But it does so with each state casting a single vote, which is a totally different scenario. If the current numbers hold, there would be 26 state delegations that are Republican and 23 Democratic, with one tied. So the outcome would be to re-elect Trump. Trump does not need to do anything other than accept this outcome, which is constitutional. Okay? So Trump clearly understands this chain of events. He has been casting doubt on mail-in ballots for months. Remember, again, this article was written more than a week before the election, insisting that the results must be ones that reflect the tally on election night. He said this week that without mail-in ballots, there would be no worries about a transfer of power because there would simply be a continuation of his rule. He has also acknowledged that at a certain point it goes to Congress. For this scenario to play out, state Republican parties have to put their desire to win above concerns that all voices are heard. Unfortunately, recent history suggests that most will readily make this trade. In other words, what he is suggesting is that state Republicans would, instead of what he considers the will of the people, stick to the Republican Party. Many state Republican parties have been actively attempting to suppress votes. Just a few examples, and then he gives a whole lot of examples here. In 2011, Texas passed a law requiring a government ID for voting and allowing gun licenses, but not student IDs from state universities. Ostensibly, this was to prevent voter fraud, which several studies have shown is largely non-existent. Well, this is his opinion. In 2017, Georgia passed a law blocking voter registrations with minor typos which mainly affect black voters. In Florida, the Republican governor and legislature have effectively gutted a state initiative that restored voting rights to more than 1 million former felons, disproportionately black. Okay, so he's making his democratic feelings well known here. American democracy is getting warped because the Republican Party believes its path to power lies not in getting a majority of the votes, but through other means. So what he is saying is, even when Trump voted the first time, Hillary Clinton got the majority of the votes, but because of the way the American Constitution works, the Electoral College decides who the president is, and there's a very specific reason for that, to avoid civil war in the country. But now, as I've said before, the script is written, and everything that would create a civil war is in play right now. Cards on the deck. In 2018, thanks to redistricting, Republicans in Wisconsin, having won about 45% of the vote, ended up with almost 65% of the seats in the state assembly. So what they're saying is you can have less votes and still get more seats in the assembly because of how everything was structured. Because if you actually look at the American land mass, you will see more red than blue there. It's because the Democrats are all hoarded into cities, something I speak about in my meetings. All the New World Order stooges living in their future smart cities. They have become used to this kind of situation on the national stage. Since 1992, the Republican presidential candidate has won the popular vote only once. In 2004, in the wake of the country's worst terrorist attack and with a wartime rally around the flag sentiment. Nevertheless, Republicans have held the White House for almost half of those 28 years. So what he's saying here is that the Constitution is not working for what he calls democracy. And they're moaning and complaining about this. And they moan and complain about this when Trump was elected in the first place. The United States prides itself as the world's leading democracy. And yet, because of a vague and creaky constitutional process, here's the key, and ferocious partisanship, this November we might put on a display of democratic dysfunction that would rival any banana republic on the planet. So what he is saying is that according to him, what is happening now is not the constitution, that the constitution creates a banana republic. So these people are actually, these Democrats are actually attacking the US Constitution. And that's what they should say. They should say openly, we don't believe in the Constitution, we want to change the Constitution. Joe Biden shouldn't come out and say the Constitution works for us or whatever, because soon they will see that this Constitution is not in their favor when Donald Trump plays his hand. But like I said, it's all part of the script. What is the script? Joe Biden will become the next American president, come hell or high water. And when I say that, I mean that. And if it's going to take civil war, that is what it's going to take. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out. And one very interesting thing that's happened is the fact that the US military is now backing Joe Biden. And this is why the secretary for the military, Trump, actually fired them on Monday. And this is an obvious thing that he would do. And you should think about what that actually means. And Mike Pompeo actually said very clearly that there will be a very smooth transition from a Trump administration to a second Trump administration. He made that clear. He said that President Trump will be inaugurated next year as the next US president, as many of you actually believe. But watch this space. Look and learn and see how the script is written and see how it will play out. These Democrats have known about all these things for a long time. They've been planning. They've got everything lined up. That's why the whole world has already gone and congratulated Joe Biden. They wanted him to win. It's all part of the plan. And it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. The rest of the world will be pitted against him. They will see him as an illegitimate leader in the US. And you will see what happens in future. There will be no Trump inauguration. It will not happen. There will be war before that happens. Thank you for watching this video. You can please subscribe to this channel or click the bell icon to get notifications for any new videos. And please, before commenting, watch to the end of the video so that you can actually get the full context and understand what I'm talking about. But thank you so much for supporting this tour that I've been on. I've got 2 more meetings before I make my way home. And thank you to all of you that I've met along this path. And thank you for your support to me and my family. Till the next video.